that will just be part of the procedure.
Okay, go. We are recording. Go ahead and clap. Wow. Do that again?
What? Is it too loud?
No, no, no. I just want to see something. Okay, yeah. I'm here. Yeah, I've got you on a decent delay. Just so we'll see how this works.
Is it a new setup that you're doing?
No, same as last time. It's just I don't know.
It's a big lag.
Clap again. Maybe it's not as big. It might just be my eyes. It might have just been that second. Who knows? Because I just turned on recording, so it may have taken a second to uh, get going. Anyway, that's the fun with technology. New computers, new software, just trying out new things to try and make this look good. But yeah, we are ready to go, and hopefully, we already and I have been making these videos on Zoom and producing them and putting them out for the last book with guests, but that's been for our patrons only. We are now moving to putting these out for everybody, so should be widely available on our YouTube channel, which is weird.
That's kind of awkward. Look at my face while I talk.
know. I'm like, wait a minute. I've actually got the computer set up so that the laptop screen with everything on it is strategically blocking my face on the screen behind it, so I can see you, but I actually can't see myself, which has been hugely helpful because otherwise you end up spending the whole time being like, wait, am I okay? Oh God, my face. So like, yeah, it's so hard not to watch yourself.
I just discovered that speaker view makes this recording a lot easier. I don't know why I didn't think of using speaker view before. I had it always in gallery view. So speaker view, much better.
Now you just see me.
Well, I see myself, but I'm a tiny little thing at the top. I'm not like...
Right. So. Yeah, I got the same thing with Discord where I can sort of see myself as a tiny little icon, just enough to make sure that I'm centered, but not enough to really throw everything off.
Yeah, no, it's... videoing is weird. So yeah, it's weird that anybody would want to watch us talk about this stuff. But I guess if you want to now, you can. And it's not edited, so all of our mistakes and all of their glory are completely on the internet.
Absolutely. This is basically as close to the live experience as you can get. Is just going to be we won't be able to respond to you on YouTube, but you can hop on YouTube and watch the unedited, unfiltered, raw version with all the mistakes and everything that we don't want you to actually see. So
we actually put a lot of time into keeping you from seeing those things, but now you can in multiple dimensions, and that's why are we doing this again? Remind me why we're doing this. I'm not selling myself on this right now.
YouTube monetized us, and so we're like, hey, watch us because we get money. So basically we're whores. We're basically
we're cam girls. Okay.
Yeah.
No, sorry, that was too sexist. Internalized patriarchy. Stop it.
I just go with
selling ourselves on the internet.
I just go with cam whores, right? Like boys can be whores too.
Yep. I'll go with that. That works. Right. We're selling ourselves on the internet. What did I let you get me into?
And I'm assuming with those words, I immediately demonetized this video. So there we go. I don't even know what the rules are. It's so funny. Because we've been putting up the audio only versions for a long time, and like they don't get a lot of views, but they get enough that apparently it's added up over time. So that combined with increased subscribers because of the TV show. Just be from the halo effect of all like Nate Bliss and Daniel Green and the Dusty Wheel and all that kind of stuff. A percentage of those people filter over to us. A very small percentage, but a percentage of them do filter over to us and subscribe. So we have reached a threshold where YouTube has said you can now make money, and so and you and I talked about going back to fewer guests just because of life kicking back off after COVID and scheduling issues and just a little bit less work in terms of editing, and it just seemed the right time to be like, let's go ahead and put the video out,
Well, I hope more people listen to the podcast than watch the videos, because that's actually polished.
Right. We put and that's the other thing is like, as much as I'm happy that you're here to watch the video, if you are here watching the video, like, go listen to the podcast. We put a lot of work to making ourselves sound a lot smarter than we are, and I want to show that work off. And basically, I think it is the better content, right? I think that anytime you have a live conversation like this, you're going to have pauses and interruptions and, slow parts and transitions and chatter around it and tangents. And we all, we're all busy people. And I think the edited, polished podcast is a much more condensed way to get the opinions and forums and stuff. But, for those three of you who are here live, clearly that your time is not that valuable to you. So you're willing to put up with all of this bullshit. So thank you so much to showing up live and taking time out of your day to listen to us fumble.
And to all of our listeners, you are excellent. Thank you for listening to us.
So shall we get into it? An actual recording. Yeah.
Let's do it. Let's get into chapter 1 and 2. Of Path of Daggers.
Yeah, do we want to talk about our strategy a little bit for this book?
Yeah, so we are getting into what most people would agree is the section known as the slog. Whether or not you agree with the slog existing, you know what it is and where it is, and we are getting into it. And we are not necessarily on either side of the slog debate. I think that we acknowledge that the slog is a subjective experience that is very real for some people and less real for other people. But there is a lot of pages spent on recap and unnecessary detail that we've hit before. And so we are going to compress sections of these books where it seems appropriate. And probably those would be chapters that most people would agree are sloggy. So,
or sections of the chapters, at least. Yeah. And so there's a good chance that there will be more combined chapters in this book as well, simply because, we feel like the actual content we need to cover. A lot of stuff we have talked about in the past, so there's some of that we don't feel the need to rehash it, but also just like, especially in these two chapters, and we've hit on this before in some early parts of the books, there's a lot of recap.
So much recap.
There's so much recap. And we have talked about some of this stuff ad infinitum. There's a word.
Ad nauseum. Ad infinitum.
Yeah.
All of it.
All of it all together. And so, we were thinking
it's walking and bitching and recapping, and there's just only so much meaning we can squeeze out of it after 390 episodes.
We've given our opinions about this. It's definitely one of those see previous episodes if you really want to know what we think. So that being said, if we miss your favorite detail or we gloss over something that you would like us to cover, please let us know. We'll try and go back and cover it in a later episode. One of the things we're also trying to do with these is have a faster turnaround time so that there's no longer 3 weeks between recording and release. Try and keep that down to under a week so we can absorb some of your feedback in more real time.
Yeah.
But the one great thing about this chapter is, of course, we get to read the paragraph.
Yes, we do.
So this is chapter 1, To Keep the Bargain, and we have the sea folk gulls, I suppose.
Gulls,
the seagulls.
Yeah, definitely gulls around a star. 2 gulls around a star making a square.
It's almost a tessellated square. It's got sort of those curved corners that makes it look like it would fit together in an E.C. Escher painting. M.C. Escher? E.C. Escher. Who the fuck is E.C. Escher? M.C. Escher.
I knew who you meant.
Yeah.
Escher.
Escher. There's only one Escher. And so, I think that is one of those patterns where you take a tessellated figure like a square, right, which this is, and then do symmetrical alterations on it on all 4 sides, and you can get something that will also, and by tessellate, I mean cover a flat plane without any gaps in between.
Yeah, that would make a really cool tattoo. This one in particular, this one made into like an Escher spiral. Mm-hmm. That would be neat.
That would be
someone should do it, and maybe that might be me.
This would even be cool just to get on the web of between your finger and your thumb. That little because that's where they get all their tattoos. They have just a web, but this one right there would be a very sea folk reference.
Ooh,
So
am I committed? Am I that committed to the cosplay? I don't know one thing about boats at all. I don't. I still have a hard time with left and right on boats. So yeah. So someone did tell me recently, port is left because it has 4 letters. I learned that at SpoilerCon
how does that help?
because starboard is right.
Oh,
It's
so
one of those
port
either or.
left.
Like I can never remember which is which.
Right.
Port is left because they both have 4 letters. I learned that at SpoilerCon.
Right. Well, and I think I got a good memnotic that's going to help me with the Sidene Sidar problem that I've had. Like, I
Oh
swear to
yeah.
God, my dyslexia has really just prevented me from remembering which is male and which is female. If I even have dyslexia, who knows? I'm not diagnosed. I just assume I do.
We're millennials. We self-diagnose as a hobby.
Woo! Doctors are too expensive.
Yeah, pretty much. Plus TikTok exists. Not
Yes.
accusing you
So,
of being a TikToker.
yes, the really terrible thing is that Sidene is peen.
Oh, that is terrible.
That is terrible, and yet it's gonna stick in my head, unfortunately, and it will actually, because then I'll be like, oh, which one's which? Oh, right. Sidar is gonna be females because it's not the other one.
I just realized I put my sticker on the most like brand appropriate spot on my water bottle because of how
Nice.
I tend to use my water bottle. That was literally an accident of where I happen to have space.
But yeah, that's the way, because you fold over the lid and hold it there. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although I guess that ring could be in any
It-
orientation.
It does. It moves, but it's tight.
Gotcha.
It doesn't move freely. So I guess yeah. If I go back, I guess it actually does move, but it is still perfect. It's at the perfect height for where my fingers come under. So
Well done.
that was a smart branding move on my part.
I have not branded my water bottle. It's just glass.
Speaking of branding, I just want to show off the shirt, which is from I gotta get my mirror right.
Kelsey's Caravan.
This is her thing in Canada, and I'm gonna go to it someday. Somehow, I'm gonna go to Canada. But yeah, it's a very comfy sweater, and I want to go to her tiny house adventure hostel magicness.
Me too. Although you're blowing my mind because I've always read that as Kelsey's Cavern, not Kelsey's Caravan. And again, I'm gonna go with the dyslexia thing. Like, there's something wrong with my brain. I have read that as the wrong word this entire time until I was like, oh yeah, Kelsey's Cavern, and you can go back and watch the tape. I definitely said that. And then you're like, no, Kelsey's Caravan. I'm like, oh.
I have that
makes
problem
more
too.
sense.
It's a very empathizable problem.
Yeah. But and she was on the planning committee for SpoilerCon year 1, and so contributed a lot.
And was at year 0.
And was at year 0, so has contributed a lot to SpoilerCon being what it is. So
yeah, she's excellent. She's been on
Excellent.
Broken Earth, and yeah, she has a business in I forget where, Canada, which is everywhere in Canada because I'm an American. But yeah, she has a really cool business taking people out on skill appropriate adventures, and her Instagram proves that she can literally do any level of adventure that you want.
Yeah, it's
Literally.
sometimes I'm a little scared. I'm like, wow, you actually go and do that.
Like she's one of those people that
Mhm.
actually can do that. But she can also take you on something that's very, very safe and appropriate. And she's got a little tiny house that she's building for it. And I think that the sweater's really cozy. So I just want to shout her business out yet again because she's awesome and deserves all of us to road trip to her.
And if you want to hear her, she was on chapter 39 of the last book, which is only 5 episodes ago, 6 episodes ago. So,
yeah, that was pretty recent.
Yeah,
wasn't
that
it?
was very recent. So I
I'm
mean,
still in love with the sweater. I'm just like addicted to wearing it,
yeah. So she's got a great voice, and you can go listen to her. Join us on an episode there. But I think I should read us in and actually get started on this chapter.
Yes,
we have absolutely managed to tangent
sorry.
hardcore at the beginning of this thing.
Editing us will fix that.
Yeah. Can you tell we are definitely out of practice on this. We took a nice long break, and now we're just like, ooh, let's catch up instead of talking about Wheel of Time.
It's so true.
Oops. Yeah.
Got a bigger audience now, though, by 3 people. So.
Woo. The wheel of time turns, and ages come and pass, leaving memories that become legend. Legend fades to myth, and even myth is long forgotten when the age that gave it birth comes again. In one age, called the Third Age by some, an age yet to come, an age long past, a wind rose above the great mountain above the great mountainous island of Tremalking. The wind was not the beginning. There are neither beginnings nor endings to the turning of the wheel of time, but it was a beginning. East, the wind blew across Tremalking, where the fair-skinned
Amayar.
where the fair-skinned Amayar farmed their fields and made fine glass and porcelain, and followed the peace of the waterway. The Amayar ignored the world beyond their scattered islands, for the waterway taught that this world was not only illusion, a mirrored reflection of belief. Yet some watched the wind carry dust and deep summer heat where the cold winter rains should be falling, and they remembered tales heard from the Athan Mier, tales of the world beyond, and what prophecy said was to come. Some looked to a hill where a massive stone hand rose from the earth, holding a clear crystal sphere larger than many houses. The Amayer had their own prophecies, and some of those spoke of the hand and the sphere and the end of illusions. I don't think I want to read the next one.
I was wondering if you'd go for it, because it's a lot, but it also continues the wind. So.
Right. So I think we're going to skip. That's a long wind. That's a lot of wind in the beginning of this one.
It's a very windy wind.
So the Amayer, we know what they mean with the end of illusions. We hear about that. That's when Rand goes to cleanse the taint in the end of the next book. And yeah, they all commit suicide.
Because the hand lights up, and that means it's the end of illusions, which always makes me think about the Aiel.
Yes.
Which makes sense because they're descended from the Gen Aiel.
Right.
The same way.
When they say they practice the waterway, that is the way of the leaf. That is what the Gen practice. These are the Aiel, basically, who went and took to the water.
Yeah, these are the Aiel who scattered into the other direction, like not onto land, but into sea, and have this like symbiotic relationship with the sea folk who were doing the same thing at the same time. And they've got their own evolved version of those myths and beliefs. And yeah, the end of illusion is a lot like the Aiel waking from the dream. Their piece of the waterway is obviously very similar to the way of the leaf. You can almost build the philosophy just by thinking about it. Like, how do they use water to justify pacifism? Like, that makes a lot of sense right off the bat.
I also have to link the end of illusion to the lighting of the pipe.
How so?
Imagine for a second that this lighting of the pipe ability that Rand has is not unique to him. That the creation of the Fourth Age really comes from this new power, that it comes from manipulating the threads of the pattern with your mind, however he did that. No longer, you could say that all life is an illusion and the end of that illusion happens when this new ability comes about, right? That somehow by committing suicide, they're avoiding horrors of the Fourth Age, right? Like from this new power that was about to come out and really cause some real issues and problems. That's, it's weak. We don't have a lot of information about the prophecy whatsoever, and what they're in the end of illusion. But like, what if what the prophecy is basically saying is avoid the suffering of the Fourth Age?
Kind of like how the Ogier might open their book of translation and go back to whatever dimension they came from. Same basic idea, but with death as the portal rather than an artifact from another planet.
Sure, exactly, yeah. Well, and imagine what would make the Ogier leave. Like, what could be so bad in the Fourth Age that the Ogier have to... They can go for the last battle. Something bad's got to happen to send them out of this world. They have to flee something. And that's not going to be the evil of the Dark One. It's going to be the evil of man.
Yeah, which, fits very much with, our age being boring as fuck because we scared off all the fae and shit. Just saying.
Totally.
So then the wind takes us to Ebudar.
Closely, you can hear angry teenagers stomping around upstairs in their natural habitat. I don't know if you guys can hear that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Having edited an episode, I can tell you they would be hearing it, or they will hear it when you're talking and making a good point while they're doing their stomping.
Yep. This is what living downstairs from teenagers does to you. Thump, 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 thump. It's not fair. Thump, thump, thump.
No, no, it's not.
No, it's really not.
That it's true. It is not. Oh, being a teenager is fun. But yeah, the wind takes us to Abu Dar.
Mm-hmm.
That's the point of the third paragraph. Is the wind taking us across to Abu Dar,
which we will then promptly leave.
Yes, we will immediately exit.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, and then the wind takes us right down to Avienda, who's being nervous because she's being stared at by. Is she being stared at by Moradin or a golem? She's being stared at by Moradin.
Both.
Who's she seeing?
The man she sees on the roof at the end is the golem.
Because that's higher up.
Yeah, and it's out on the roof, whereas Moradin is looking at her through a window.
Right, and through a grate, so
right.
She can't see him.
Right, but I do think both of them are watching her.
Yeah, that. I was like, as I'm asking the question, I'm like, but why not both?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure that I've had this thought process before. Why would it not be both? It's definitely both. So yeah, she's having spidey senses because she's a warrior and they have spidey senses. And there's a lot of stuff in her head. We're just in her head and she's thinking about death and Oliver and taking the fifth from Tylan and how that would be rude.
And this is a lot of, listen, here are the characters in Abu Dar. We've got Brigida, we've got Oliver, we've got Matt, we've got all these people who she's leaving behind. Again, this is a lot of recap about who these characters are, what the relationships are. Yeah, you haven't seen a book in 2 years. This first chapter is going to tell you a lot about who these characters.
Yeah,
and what
Nynaeve and Lan just got married. Like, just in case you forgot, that happened. There's even a mention at one point of how Nynaeve is no longer blocked, and it's like that was literally last week,
right?
In the timeline, like this is not like a long ago she couldn't. It's literally last week, but in publishing order, it was 2 years ago, so that was a long time ago, which is fair.
Yeah. You have no right to promise to take care of me like that, Landman Dragarin. I am not a porcelain figurine.
You're an Aes Sedai and his wife. Sorry, that was actually in the contract. I can promise you that was in the contract.
His response, the day you die, I die. Just very simple, deadpan, very Lan. So good.
So Lan.
Yeah.
So good. Yeah.
And then Avienda began to suspect that the other woman often used silence and supposedly significant looks to cover ignorance.
Yes, she is.
You think? You're beginning to suspect that, are you? Yeah.
Maybe try doing that, and it's funny. the unreliable narrator is strong in this chapter of recap.
It is.
It gets you back into the feel of how the unreliable narrator works, because it's been 2 years, unless you were rereading for the whole 2 years, which only a weirdo would do.
But one of the things I like about this chapter is it is very much from Avienda's POV, and we don't get a lot of Avienda's POV. It's a nice way to give us some recap, to be like, okay, Avienda, who we don't normally get her opinions, here is her opinion about all of these things. You may know them already, but you don't know Avienda's opinion about them. And so there is something fresh about this chapter, even though it is a lot of recap. And we are, even though we're brushing over it, a lot of like, Avienda feels this way about X, Y, and Z comes from this chapter. Because it like, almost all of her opinions are summed up in this thing about everything that's happened over the last, 3 books with these girls.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. It's more fun to read to yourself than it is for us to talk about, because it's just like, this is who Avienda is.
Right.
This is a chapter that is really giving you that. But there's seeing the other characters through her eyes is neat, and seeing how she sees herself is neat. But it's just, there's not a lot to talk about.
I like this little sentence on Aiel humor. Sort of gives us a framework for what I think about how I judge Aiel humor. Tripping someone who had tried to walk too high was always fun, or watching it done, and even a shortfall was worth a laugh. And I think a lot of the like Aiel humor is confusing, has a lot to do with someone who tries to strut and then gets like basically humiliated.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason wetlanders don't get it is either they don't understand the arrogance because the arrogance goes over their head, or they don't understand the humiliation because they don't understand why, a certain thing is like,
Right.
useless
Yeah.
labor is humiliating. Like, doesn't make sense to them.
Right. It's many layers deep.
Mm-hmm. But
Yeah.
the structure of that, I think, gives you a really good clue as to how most Aiel humor is formed. And if you understand that sentence, you understand a lot of their jokes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, we also get to learn exactly how old Avienda is. Almost 20.
Oh,
That
okay.
is stated right there on the page in
Mm-hmm.
this chapter. So just in case anyone was wondering where she sits in the swath of ages canonically, she's almost 20. She's 19.
Which means when we met her at least a year ago, she was 18.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if she'll be aged up in the show too. Presumably.
Yeah, one would assume.
Why would
Although
why would not?
they still
She's
have some time to get that sorted because we assume we're not meeting Avienda anytime soon.
yeah, I am definitely assuming like season 3 or something. I don't know. I haven't thought about it that hard. I assume that not anytime soon. um, and so then we run into Teslin, which
Mm-hmm.
is worth a mention
Definitely.
because a lot actually falls out from information that we wouldn't have anywhere else. It only exists here, which is basically that, hi, I drugged Jolene.
Yeah. We find out about that in Winter's Heart, but yeah. So apparently she's like, yeah, Jolene and I will no interfere. Yeah, she drugged Jolene with fork root.
Yeah, she says, I did see to that.
Yeah.
I gave her fucking drugs. I roofied Jolene.
But that's
just
what.
so that you can get away from Elida and get away with whatever you're doing.
But in a lot of ways, that's why they get captured, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
Jolene is drugged when the Shanchan
Yeah,
come into.
and her warders get her away, but
Yeah.
that's why she can't get away, is because she not only is drugged, but she can't channel.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because then she wakes up and she's like, "Oh, let's get out of here. Fuck, I can't channel."
Right.
Like,
I'm still suffering the fork root hangover.
yeah, and she would have gotten caught instantly if she had. So thank goodness, right? But it's like somehow Teslin has learned about fork root. Oh, because she has orders to get Nynaeve and Elaine.
Mm-hmm.
That's why she has fork root. But she just fucking gives it to Jolene instead because she's so mad at Elida. It's entirely because she's pissed at Elida.
Tylan is that shriveled. Teslin, sorry. Teslin is that shriveled up old teacher who has been teaching for way too long and is done with his kid's shit and is not messing around anymore and will fucking drug her children for some peace, right? Like, this,
Yeah.
she literally does not care anymore. And she does not like Elida. Like, we've seen from her POV, she should have been a sitter of the Red, and instead Elida humiliated her and outlawed her to show that Elida can come down on anyone, just to show that she's powerful. And like, so Teslin is deliberately undermining her and not sending her information and making sure she doesn't know what's going on, because she does not like Elida. Like, she's loyal to the tower, she does not like Elida.
Yeah, and like Jolene doesn't like Elida either. Like the two of them hate each other and hate Elida, and it's just everything's being done out of spite. In that everything to do with them is being done out of spite,
which is emblematic of the White Tower in general, right? I mean, that's what's going on with the White Towers. No one trusts anyone else. Everything is just a spite-filled, hate-filled, undermined, toxic
backstabbing.
fest. Yeah,
This is why Shiriam thought that any sister would join the Black if given the chance, because that's the culture.
Every bad job I've ever worked that then lasts for thousands of years.
That's so uncool.
Yeah.
Even centuries is not cool. Yeah. And then there's this great line from Avienda. A wise one did not stoop to thrashing someone with her fists, but she was still only an apprentice. It's like, oh, she is so an apprentice. She is not ready to declare her independence. She's even right here saying, I am an apprentice, right? She's not in that space of being ready. She's not ready.
No, but I love the in-between space that all of these characters occupy. They are not old enough or respected enough or gone through enough ceremonies to be like the official Aes Sedai or Wise Ones. So they don't necessarily have the responsibilities that come with that and haven't gone through all the indoctrination, but at the same time, they're not novices. They have so much more powers. They've dealt with so much stuff. They have more experience than half of these quote unquote full Wise Ones or full Aes Sedai, right? They are, in a lot of ways, more than even some of the best of the Aes Sedai. And so they occupy this weird in between space that gives them a lot of freedom and a lot of power. It's like being a grad student, right? Like
Yeah.
you don't have the responsibilities of like surviving in the real world and holding down a job, but at the same time you have a lot of power and authority in a university setting, and you have a lot of authority over undergrads and that sort of thing, right? So
Yeah.
but then imagine if you were that and also massively rich.
And massively powerful to blow
Massively
things up with
right.
your mind.
Right. Well,
Yeah,
it's sort of
that's
yeah.
potent.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, I'm on sabbatical, right? Which these girls
Mm.
are. So they get to go travel the
Mm-hmm.
world with a bunch of money and no real
Yeah.
responsibility. And while they're at it, they're uncovering all these really cool things. And it's like basically, there's a reason why people in their 20s make a lot of discoveries. They have the time and the energy and the freedom to do it.
Yeah. And then, so speaking of being young, Elaine then completely faceplants on a curse.
Pull your nose out of our coats, you summer ham, and be glad we do not choose to take issue with you supporting an usurper on the Emerald seat.
And Lan is just like, what?
Lan's response is my favorite because everyone else is like, whatever, that was gibberish.
Yeah.
But Lan's like, that wasn't gibberish, but that was not right.
Yeah. Like, what did you just try and fail to do, girl?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's hilarious.
It's like, I'm gonna mother goater your up the butt. Like it's just
Yeah,
in the kitchen.
Toddler putting it
Yeah.
together.
It's just like that. They're all curses, but they don't go well together. That doesn't make any
It's
sense.
beautiful.
Right.
And Avienda's just like, clearly, I don't understand wetland is correct.
Right. It's like, nobody understands that one. Yeah, she knows.
Yeah,
Everyone
no.
else seems it's puzzled too, but yeah, it must just be some silly wetlander thing.
Yeah. And then Nynaeve does this thing where she just completely info dumps the entirety of the danger from the last book, in case the reader has forgotten. She just info dumps the entire thing in one paragraph onto Tesla.
Yep.
And it makes no sense.
Golem.
It's so ridiculous. It's just like, this is just an info dump of exposition.
Do you want to read it though?
I mean, I could.
It's just that Moghedien has been here in Abu Dar.
Okay. Moghedien has been here in Abu Dar. She might still be. And maybe another Forsaken too. With a golem, a kind of shadow spawn the power won't touch. It looks like a man, but it was man-made and made to kill Aes Sedai. Steel doesn't seem to hurt it either. And it can squeeze through a mouse hole. The Black Aja is here as well. And there's a storm coming. A bad storm. Only it isn't a storm, not weather. I can feel it. That's a skill I have, a talent, maybe. There's danger headed for Abu Dar, and trouble worse than any wind or rain or lightning. It's like, Nynaeve, have some chill. It's the most unchill fucking paragraph ever.
But it is. That's because it's nothing Nynaeve would ever say. It's just a recap.
Yeah.
Yep. But it's a good recap if you want to catch up.
Yep. And Teslin's like, that was a dumb thing for you to say. That's a bunch of recap. I don't care. And walks away.
We are all Teslin in this situation.
Yeah,
there's a reason I
basically.
like Teslin so much. It's just this like
great.
I don't give a fuck attitude is just great with her.
I really, really hope that they decide to keep Teslin, and that means that we're going to see her as just like a background red who becomes relevant later. Like, I really, really hope that they make her a background Aes Sedai, and then it turns out she's that. I like Teslin. She deserves more screen time.
Yeah, there's the more that I learn about the TV show, the more I think little stories like this are just not going to be able to make it in.
I know. I know.
As much as I want them to be there, I think they are going to be a distraction for something that has limited screen time.
I still want to see Teslin.
Yeah, me too. But she's such a minor character on such a minor plot point, you know? We'll
But
see.
they're gonna need 3 red eyes to die to be named at some point. Surely there's room for her.
I don't know. We don't even have a Bail Domon at this point, so I think Bail Domon's going to be cut, and he's such a major character to
Yeah,
me that
I
it's like,
know. It's
if he's the bar, right? Like, there's so many people below
Yeah,
that
yeah.
bar that I just can't. I can't have faith that they're going to be there, because he's majorish, both in the beginning and at the end for different reasons. But
Yeah. So Avienda considers punching Teslin, which is neat. And then Lan's like, we should probably skedaddle. Brigida's like, have you tried hurting cats, bro? And the warders are just having this whole like Nani or Brigida and Lan and the other warders have a whole subplot going. This whole series of chapters. Like they have their own warder thing going on. It's so funny.
yeah, it's definitely background stuff though.
Yeah, it's completely background. We get a timeline confirmation
Right.
that the Festival of Birds was 2 days ago.
Ah, Elaine regretted not having a chance to truly see the Festival of the Birds just yesterday. What does yours say?
2 days ago. And I'm pretty sure that's what the audiobook has. 2 days
So,
ago.
yeah. Watt Encyclopedia says early printing stated 2 days ago. This is being corrected. So just yesterday is actually the correct timeline, and 2 days ago was an incorrect, was an error in early printings.
Okay. I read the line and I was like, I feel like this is off, but I'm really bad with timelines and
We've had some confusion over just
okay.
exactly how these days have gone with Matt, because we see it from both Matt's perspective and this perspective, and they are so tightly compacted. Like I said, it's 10 days from the beginning of the last book to the end of this one, and here we are 1 day later. And I even think this day is, we see this day from Matt's perspective, right? Because he's under the wall already.
Well, he's gonna be under the wall in like an hour.
Right,
But
but in our reading of the books, at
oh
the end of the
yeah,
last
yeah.
book, he went under the wall. Yet that clearly hasn't happened because the Shan have not invaded Ebu Dar yet. So
Right.
that doesn't happen until like chapter 6, 7 of this book, right? So
Right.
we are going back in time with this book, just from a different POV. But that's how we're getting synced up, and this has to be, and that's why this has to be just a day ago instead of 2 days
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah.
Because if it was 2 days ago, then the Ebu Dar would have already been invaded, and none of this would work.
Okay. Neat. I
Yeah.
am not surprised I didn't catch that, but I'm glad that my niggling what the fuck is going on here
No,
does
well,
actually come through.
once again, shout out to encyclopediawatt.org, which just has just great references and catches and stuff for stuff like this. They're just just the facts ma'am type website. I really do like it. So
Nice. Cool. Next thing I have is where they're talking about the circuses.
yes, which one
Because
of which is Val and Luca?
yeah, like it's just a little like, hey, he matters.
Yeah.
He will show up again. Just in a bit.
Mm-hmm.
The refugee eliminators, obviously Eludra. And then Avienda hates liking dresses.
Yeah, she was enjoying talk of lace and embroidery.
She's so proud.
Yeah. Yeah, there is something to be said for like the first time you dress up nice and you're like, oh, this actually does make me feel different. There is something about, and psychologists have looked into this in terms of like the way you dress affects the way you think about yourself.
Mm, that makes sense.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then obviously in the world of dreams, the opposite is true. The way you feel about yourself affects how you dress.
Right, right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Soon she would start simpering.
Not that she'd ever seen her friends do that, but
I
everybody knows
know.
Wetlander women
Everybody
simper.
knows.
Everybody
They
knows.
do that.
Right. Not that you've
Oh my
been living in the
God.
wetlands for years and haven't seen a damn sign of it in anybody you know or respect, right?
Yeah,
Like, yeah.
nothing. It's oh my God, she's so adorably blind to the everything. It's
Prejudiced. She's definitely,
yeah,
very
she's very
prejudiced.
she's like basically xenophobic.
Yeah.
Like she's really not okay with wetlanders, like
But
at all.
think about her raising. She's been raised among a very insular group in a very isolated place with no exposure to these other people. And like, yes, she's learning about them. But again, it's been months in the wetlands, not years.
Yeah, Yeah.
So it takes a lifetime to change that kind of thinking. And
Yeah.
and it starts with, oh, the people I know are different, but everybody else is still
Right.
stereotype.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But
So
it's not the most generous reading of Avienda. Like she's a little
she has some problematic blind spots.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's a thing. But anyhow, moving on. There's a bunch of women who yell at each other in the stable yard. They all get out into the stable yard, and there's a whole bunch of screaming.
Yeah, we got
Until
the kin, we've got the Shan Chan, we've got not
no,
Shan Chan, we've got the kin, the Sea Folk, and the Aes
the Aes
Sedai,
Sedai and the Knitting Circle.
and the knitting circle.
There's 4 groups,
Well,
and then the Supergirls.
isn't the knitting circle the kin?
Oh fuck, yeah, you said them already. Okay, so
Yeah.
there's 3 groups, and they all yell at each other because they all hate each other, and so they all yell at each other, and that's why these chapters are a fucking drag.
And it is very like we've talked about name salad.
Absolute name salad.
Absolute name salad, right?
And so little of it ever matters.
Right.
Like ever. And if we'll find the references online when it matters. But yeah, it's Nynaeve goes to the Knitting Circle, Elaine goes to the Aes Sedai, and Avienda goes to the Sea Folk, and it's just awkward as fuck. And then there's lots of yelling. I wanted to ask you to remind me which of the Aes Sedai is a black sister. Is it Saritha? Or is it the other one? Because I still cannot
right.
remember which one it is.
Karine, I believe, is the black.
Okay.
Not Saritha.
Okay, not Saritha. I always wanted to not be Saritha because she's a brown.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So yeah, she
definitely
the brown, not the black sister is holding the bowl and clinging to it, and that's really the only thing that I have for like a page. It's literally all that matters.
Yeah, you know what's funny is I read that and I was like, oh, a large white disc-shaped bundle. I was like, wait, did they find a seal, one of the Quendiar seals? And I was like, oh no, bowl wins.
Yep.
Yep.
It's a very shallow bowl.
Yep. And when covered with a blanket would be disc-shaped, I suppose.
Yeah, very much so.
Sort of think of it like Captain America's shield, almost that exact size and shape, right? If you like flip it over, right, that shallow bowl with just big enough to wrap your arms around, like, yeah.
I can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I almost sort of see it as a shield, or yeah. Huh. Probably more like the inside of a dome. Like if you're standing on the ground, the way the sky looks like the inside of a dome, even though it's clearly not because we project 3 dimensions onto 2Ds. But I could see how then that would affect your magic, that you could then project your magic onto the bowl and then reflect that up on the sky and sort of be like, oh, I'm affecting the whole sky around me, not just...
Right. The projection has to match.
Yep.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense, actually.
God, I love Jordan.
Yeah, no, totally.
Everything just makes so much more sense the more deep I dig into it. And yeah, okay, I've said that a million times, but every once in a while I get hit with that wave of like, God, that man was good.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah. I like the whole like thing with Sumeko, like getting backbone because of Nynaeve's encouragement. Because that sort of happens as a little background thing. And like at one point later in the chapter, Nynaeve tries to like give her encouraging pats. And she's just like, out, go away. Because Nynaeve gets this whole savior complex and thinks that they should be like grateful to her, and they aren't.
No.
I mean, like some of them are, but in this weird way. And Sumeko's just like, oh, right, I have a backbone. Let's go. And I like that for her, even though it's not super relevant. But I mean, that goes on throughout the books, and it kind of, in many ways, you really get her characterization started here. Like the spark gets laid last book, but you really see it flowering in this book.
Well, and I think with her, there's this sort of skilled base path to becoming arrogant, right? Because with her, with healing, it's this very specific, like, can you or can't you verifiable skill. And she realizes, oh, I'm better than the Aes Sedai at this one very particular skill. Maybe they're not. And it's like, I would assume that they would have been better than me for years and years and years. And realizing that I'm better than them at healing, maybe I'm better than them at a lot of other things too. You know, maybe we are equals. That sort of like, and so I think that Sumiko has that pathway to becoming, quote unquote, equal in her own mind with the other Aes Sedai, whereas some of the other kin, it takes them longer to realize that the Aes Sedai are actually just big idiots. and
Mm-hmm.
and yes, we're all big idiots, but like they're everyone's just the ice. I always come back to Moraine's quote. The power doesn't change us. You'll find the same kinds of women in the tower: greedy, selfish, noble, pleasant, unpleasant. Like Jordan does such a good job of showing us some of the unpleasant sides of women who can channel in these chapters. It's brilliant. It's frustrating, but it's brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Very much so. Yeah. No, I like that interpretation of what's up with Sumiko. Then Avienda thinks about how it's weird how the Aes Sedai rank themselves by strength and the power rather than age.
Yeah, and we all
It's
know,
it's just
yeah,
one of those cultural
right.
misconceptions.
Everybody ranks themselves differently. Avienda doesn't even know how the wise ones rank themselves, so
Yeah, no,
whatever.
she doesn't.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, it's all irrelevant. And then we get the setup for the whole Ispan thing, where the kin don't want her and the Aes Sedai want her, and Nynaeve and Elaine don't want that to happen, but literally everybody else wants that to happen. And this is just a setup for that.
And I
With
think
various
that,
parties saying, "Hi, I want this," and
yeah,
then being like, "No," and then
and I think it's a legitimate thing. I think that's a legitimate, like, it's not a good idea to give the Dark Friend back to the Aes Sedai, because guess what? There's another Dark Friend.
that's not why they make that choice, though.
No.
And I don't understand what their reasoning actually is here. I don't know why they want the kin to hold on to her. The kin don't want her. Why are they insisting that the kin hold on to her?
I think it's putting the backbone into them. I think it's, you will realize that you can hold this woman. This woman is no better than you are.
Really? I think that's what it is.
Yeah, kind of.
I find it a very weird hill for them to be dying on. And we spend like 2 chapters of them bickering about it, and it's just like I don't know why this had to happen.
I think they think it's a good idea to not leave a dark friend with her sisters and friends who she may be able to talk into helping her out, right? Like, it's much easier to hold a stranger that someone tells you is a dark friend than your friend that someone tells you is a dark friend. That's
Maybe.
so.
And
I just think
don't know.
I think there's a lot of reasons for it
Okay.
that make sense. And then once you make that decision and everyone's bugging you, you have to put your foot down, or else your leadership's going to be undercut. And so I think it's more about sort of putting your foot down and sticking with it, even if it seems like all results are neutral. So why, is it really any better to have them over here than over there? No, but I made that decision, so you're going to listen to me.
That's fair. That's fair. I can see that. Strangers are safer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when we see Rand doing this all the time, when he does, he puts these soldiers in not their homeland to fight, and those soldiers in not their homeland to fight, or he gives the Aes Sedai to the wise ones, or he, but not to the Black Tower because they're evil against them. So like separating people who are allies and giving them to other people so that they're going to follow what you say because they can't fall back into old behaviors. It's a leadership technique that Jordan has definitely assigned to his quote-unquote good leaders. I don't know if it works so well in real life, but it does seem to be something that everybody around here seems to fall into.
Yeah. That's, yeah. And there's the whole discussion about, from Avienda's perspective, this discussion about Egwene's plan to bring all women into contact with the tower.
Mm-hmm.
And you get a foretaste of how the Aiel are going to feel about that when Egwene actually proposes it to her Wise One friends. Avienda's reaction is pretty much what their reaction is, which is like, maybe that could be cool voluntarily, but don't make it happen on purpose. And I realized that there hasn't actually been shouting yet. The description, the section I skipped over before, was not shouting. It was a description of the sea folk.
Now we're at the shouting.
Now there's shouting. Now the shouting section happens. And Avienda's like, who should I kill first? Because she is a calm, rational adult who does not make completely rash decisions.
Right. So basically, Nynaeve outshouts everybody, and they all shut up. Everybody's shouting until Nynaeve outshouts them, and that's how that segment begins and ends.
Yep.
I don't really have anything to say about it.
Nope. It's just Avienda being so violent.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, how shall that be fun? It's fun to be in her head, but it's
Yes,
not.
yes.
Yeah.
So they seem to say, hey, maybe it's time to go before his shouting breaks out again.
Mm-hmm.
And Avienda creates the gateway. Not really sure why Avienda's the one creating the gateway in this case.
I
Uh,
think it's to free up Elaine and Nynaeve.
yeah.
And maybe, you know what I bet it is that Aes Sedai cannot demean themselves to the roles like opening gateways.
Hmm.
She's outside of that hierarchy, so she wouldn't be demeaned in the eyes of the sea folk who they're trying desperately to impress by holding the door. I mean, the person who holds the door cannot be a good leader,
Gotcha.
or cannot be
Gotcha.
a powerful leader. I bet that's what it is. I like the description of her of Saidar, but it's not. There's nothing to talk. It's just it's fun to be in her head.
Right.
That's literally it.
Yeah, and again, we're getting these. Again, it's recap about how channeling works, right?
Yeah.
She fought the urge
You
to
need
draw
one every book.
more. Yeah, she's weaving the flows together.
By it.
Right. Yeah. All this terminology about like, okay, instead of just saying seizing the power and wove a gateway, we get it described in all its glorious detail.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah,
she
totally.
created an identity between this place and the place she had chosen on a map with Elaine and Nynaeve, of course, which is they're heading to the farm.
Yeah. So they pop beyond into a large clearing miles north.
Mm-hmm.
And we get this from the Golem's perspective later also, that they just run a few miles north, and
Right.
Moradin assumes that they go like hundreds of miles or whatever,
Right.
thousands of miles. He assumes that they're going as far as possible. They literally pop just a tiny bit north, which is so smart. They had that idea that they shouldn't run far because whoever raided the storeroom is going to look for them. They completely like hide in plain sight. It's great.
And the golem seems to follow them to the farm, but it loses them when they flee the farm away from the Shanchan.
Right. Yeah. He follows slowly and leisurely and misses them.
Right.
Because he's got other priorities.
And that's why he ends up turning on Matt, because we do see from his POV that he sees the women as easier targets than Matt.
Yeah. So yeah, more of being in Avienda's head. Everyone starts going through, and then they start going through very slowly, and we take pages and pages and pages to get everyone through the goddamn gateway while Avienda gets paranoid.
And the only thing I'll say about Avienda is she does have trouble weaving this type of gateway. She seems to have a different kind of gateway that she wove when she was fleeing Rand that was more instinctual, that is woven in a different way. But this weave is similar enough that it's giving her problems. It's that whole learning a weave that's similar to a weave you already know is hard. And that's why she's having so much trouble forming this gateway, and why it takes all of her power, and she complains about that and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Why she can't move more than 5 or 6 steps without this weave beginning to weaken. All those troubles stem from fleeing from Rand.
Having some serious shame issues. Because as we see in her head throughout this chapter, she has a lot of shame issues.
Yeah.
That's a feature of her personality.
It's not a flaw, it's a feature.
And so, yeah, she gets watched. She's being watched. Anyone could be behind the wrought iron grillwork. We know that someone is.
Right.
And also the golem is hanging out way the fuck up on a spire. So they're both watching her. And she sends a message through because she's feeling paranoid. And that message doesn't get through. And it doesn't change anything. It's completely irrelevant.
Right.
That's just a reason for her to be pissy at the sea folk in the next chapter.
Right? It's like, oh, was that person a dark friend? No, that person was just lazy, I guess, and didn't think it was important, didn't bother to pass it off. Also, it's a really vague message that even Elena says later. She's like, I wouldn't have done anything differently. I wouldn't have understood what you were saying. That's too vague for me to have had any idea what was going to happen. So, but the Windfinder who passed it on, we figured out is Kurin, Kurin.
I'm sure she shows up a couple of times to be in a room.
To be in a room with other sea folk. There's nothing unique about her whatsoever other than another one of the sea folk. So. Yep.
Yeah. So Avienda draws a bunch of the power because she's feeling really scared, and the chapter ends. And then we pick up.
Right, because she does see the golem, right?
Yeah, she sees the golem. She sees someone watching her, and she's got major spidey sense prickles.
And I just want to read that little section.
I was just gonna like roll straight into the next chapter.
Yeah, hold on. Narrow walks ring some of those slim spires, and on one, very high, was a black shape, haloed by a sharp nimbus from the sun behind. A man. Her breath caught. Nothing in his stance, hands on the stone railing, spoke of danger, yet she knew he was the one who put that crawling between her shoulder blades. One of the shadow soul would not stand there simply watching, but that creature, that golem. Ice formed in her belly. So yeah, that's
She's
golem.
got that spidey sense of shadow tainted things make channelers feel creepy.
But also, it makes sense that she can't make any details. The sun's behind him. He's backlit. He's just a silhouette.
Yep.
So they head through the gateway, and we enter chapter 2.
And yeah, we switch POVs. We're out of
Yep.
Avi's head, which is sort of a bummer, but it happens. We go into Elaine's head instead. It's
Do you want to read maybe read us? So this is chapter
first paragraph.
Yeah, and give us a
Yeah.
symbol
Little
and
transition.
little transition.
Okay. Chapter 2. Unweaving. And our symbol is the 4-leaf clover snake.
Which there's no Forsaken in this one, is there? Oh no, of course there is. There's Moradin.
Yep.
So yeah, that's his thing, and the unweaving is the unweaving of the gateway, which he speculates about.
Yes. Very specifically, the unweaving of the gateway. It's a very big deal. I'm gonna drink some water before I do this.
Isn't it like necessary before readings to wet your whistle?
So much.
Or if you're Michael Kramer, drink some coffee. Apparently. Oh, he's fine. His vocal cords adjust to it. I'm like, yeah, he likes it because it gives him that low rumble. It makes him a little more.
Which literally everybody likes.
Yes,
so.
yes. It's the loyal voice.
Okay. Elaine stepped to one side as soon as she was through the gateway, but Nynaeve trampled across the clearing, kicking up brown grasshoppers from dead grass and peering this way and that for evidence of the warders. Of one warder, anyway. A bright red bird flashed across the clearing and was gone. Nothing else moved except the sisters. A squirrel barked elsewhere in the mostly leafless trees. And then there was silence. To Elaine, it seemed impossible those three could have passed this way without leaving paths as wide as that behind Nynaeve, yet she could not make out any sign that they had been there at all. Yep, it's field.
And Nynaeve settles down to look in Lan's direction. And Elaine basically says it's probably just process of elimination or finding a
really
track.
Clever.
Yeah. Someone speculated that, hey, she healed him. That's supposed to point you in someone's direction vaguely. That might be, we always complain that that's one of those eye of the worldisms that seems to have gotten left behind. Maybe this is that. Maybe she's using the healing connection to sense his vague direction.
Yeah, maybe he's got a special signal that he can leave on his things, or maybe there's some one power bondy stuff with the Windfinders and their marriage. Why not?
Yeah, we don't know. We don't see the marriage bond, the marriage ceremony between Lan and Nynaeve. Maybe it is some sort of one power bonding. The Aiel certainly have
one
it.
Power magic.
Yeah.
Or maybe they've incorporated that into their culture. We don't know.
We really don't, but we probably not, because you think Nynaeve would have mentioned the power in a weave and speculated.
Yeah,
she would have
probably.
noticed a weave and speculated
That's
on it.
true.
It's rare. Yeah.
I like the idea that it's that thing that we complain about as being an eye of the worldism, actually showing up and paying off. She always just has a vague sense of the people she would care about enough to heal.
Yeah. Yeah.
I prefer that headcanon for this moment.
Me too. I'm gonna stick with it.
Yeah. And then Elaine thinks about how Avienda's braver than her, because that's what the girls self-delude about.
Right. Whereas the boys' equivalent is, oh, he's better with women, and with women it's, oh, she's braver. But in a lot of ways, aren't those the same thing?
To some people.
Yes. Being good with women is basically being brave. Not like having confidence. Everyone tells you like, oh, just be confident, be brave. Like, go up and ask.
Well, I look like
What's
a confident person.
yeah. I mean, so I'm told, right? Like, so I'm told.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
um,
Yeah. So Elaine hangs out at the gateway so that she can sense all the windfinders going through and hop through if Avienda has a problem, because she notices Avienda looks stressed. But she also wants to just sense the windfinders and do some dick measuring. Basically, Elaine embarks on a very not subtle dick measuring contest.
yeah, I didn't even really consider that, but yeah, that's basically what she's doing.
I mean, she's not
Checking
like
up.
holding the power and flexing,
No,
like,
but
but she's
like the
still
men would have to
measuring.
do. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah, and she talks about how the Windfinders have the knowledge. They're going to do full circle of 13. You know, all the planning that they've put into the Bowl of the Winds that we hear about over and over and over again. But yeah, so
And then we get the three apprentices,
yeah, do you want to talk
one
about
of
them?
whom kind of, sort of, almost matters a little bit and then doesn't.
Talon. So Talon, who is almost very, very close to Nynaeve and still getting stronger, so
Mm-hmm.
basically as strong as any of the Forsaken, um, you'd think would matter at some point, right?
You would expect her to come barreling out of the White Tower with some badass skills and come in and save Nynaeve at the last minute or something. But no, she just fucking no, she vanishes. She vanishes to the tower with Morel, because Morel is like, I am getting out of here because I hate the sea folk, except for this novice, basically. And they head to the tower, and I don't think we ever see her again,
Yep.
unless I'm misremembering.
Zaida leaves for Ilion, accompanied by 12 Windfinders, including other apprentices. Um,
Legit in chat is like, oh, lesbian kidnapping. You hauled.
nice.
That's funny.
Um, so yeah, basically, the Zaida leaves. Seafolk are in uproar when one of the apprentice Windfinders, and we know that has to be
That's Talon.
Talon. Yeah, and she's just gone.
Yep. And I don't think Rainan or Matara ever show up ever again.
And neither does
I
Morel.
No, Myrelle shows up a lot.
Not after she kidnaps the Seafolk
Oh,
apprentices.
not after that. I thought you
Yeah.
meant after here. Like,
No, no, no. Yeah, no. So she kidnaps the. That's the last we ever see of those two kidnapping, and they're just like on the road. They never show up at any destination, as far as we can tell.
So their experience is kind of fifth season ish. They're like on the road running away from their problems, and then the apocalypse hits and they have to survive as just lost refugees.
Basically,
It's
yeah.
kind of a Tonki Essen relationship.
Right, or they could end up somewhere and just be completely. They could be in the White Tower and just no one talks about them.
Yeah.
No one cares.
Yeah. No, I just think that, yeah, they just,
But you
I think they get caught on the road. That
yeah,
makes more sense.
That makes more sense because you think someone of that power would be talked about. Like,
Yeah,
oh my
exactly.
God, she showed up and she was X powerful.
And Morel showing up
Mhm.
brings news about the Seafolk bargain and perspectives on the Seafolk experience and all of that. So yeah, I think they just get caught on the road mid-apocalypse.
And as we talked about with the compressed timeline, there's a lot of places where you can get caught on the road and just never make it to anywhere significant before the last battle happens.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
In the real world, right? Like, not everyone's going to be in a dramatic place. Some people will be stuck on, the off ramp or something.
Still, it's definitely a Chekhov's gun that just is left on the
Yeah.
table.
Talon is a disappointment.
It is very much so.
But yeah, Rainan and Matara, even more so. They just, nothing ever happens with them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so Elaine's like, oh, wow, I'm not the strongest channeler in the world. So surprising. And that's it for a page.
The next thing I have is Lenny Sangs.
Lenny saying.
Because I can't skip over a good Lenny Sang.
Nope.
So Elaine's freaking out over over Rand possibly dying. She's like, "Wait, peel the apple in your hand, girl, not the one on the tree," because it's like you can't do anything about Rand. And
Mm-hmm.
then tears are for after. They just waste time before.
Those are two really good
Really
sayings.
good sayings, yeah. Which is
Yeah.
very much deal with what's in front of you, not what's happening somewhere else, and not you know what's going to happen in the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And then there's this weird thing with like the kin being all like, oh, we have to apologize to our war crimes prisoner. That's a really important thing. Oh, I'm sorry I has to die. It's just it takes up so much page space and it's so fucking stupid.
Yeah, it's basically realizing that your heroes shouldn't be up on a pedestal,
It's
right?
so ugh.
Yeah.
I it bothers me. Anyhow,
It turns out Harvey Weinstein was a bad guy, right? Like, but there's still a lot of people who want to venerate him and want to say like, oh well, maybe he created all this good stuff, or maybe like there's
mhm,
that sort of like, you worship the movie producers, you worship the people of power and influence, and in this world those are Aes Sedai, and even when they fall, it's hard to be like, well, yeah, she's evil, but she's Aes Sedai.
mhm, mhm. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
we still venerate all our celebrities that fall.
I don't.
Well, as a culture, we do. And as much as
I
you'd like to deny that you were not
yep.
part of that,
I wish that I could just tap out, but no,
no,
I'm embedded in the matrix of reality.
we live in a society.
Ugh, disgusting.
I know, right? Why haven't we formed our own commune yet? The Wheel of Time? Well, right. We have to finish the podcast first. We're
Yeah.
recruiting.
Yeah. We're currently recruiting the cult. We actually formed the cult and built the compound after
Gotcha.
we finished
Gotcha.
the thing. Yeah.
Right. Tears are for after. They just waste time before. Right. Got it.
Exactly.
Exactly. Let's
Exactly.
keep on task.
Speaking of task, Elaine is now going to sort some Angreal.
Which is the most fun part of this chapter, but like of these two
Of
chapters.
both these
Yeah, we're
chapters.
like, let's get to the sorting of the Angreal part, because
Yeah, this part's
finally,
fun.
finally, the cash pays off, right? Like, they finally get something out of all of the Ebu Dar stuff in the last book, which is some Terangreal and Angreal. So, she's sorting through, and basically all she's doing is figuring out whether something is a Terangreal or not.
Yeah. Yeah. Does it hum or does it not hum?
Mm-hmm.
Is it
Which
garbage or not?
always makes me wonder if she misses any of the male Terangreal that maybe don't have a resonance with Saidar.
Yeah. That actually makes perfect sense. I mean, aside from the fact that like Terran have a certain look,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, she's only keeping the things that feel right.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't talk about throwing away any interesting figurines,
No.
but
One of those table legs could have been a male Saint-Angreal. That's what I'm saying.
yeah,
They none
clearly.
of the match, right? Like,
Yeah.
someone was a carpenter who was like, my Saint-Angreal will be the leg that has supported me this entire time, most powerful thing in the universe. And it turns out she's just throwing it by the wayside because, it didn't respond to Saidar.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a completely plausible scenario. Okay, so the first one she finds is a stone carving a little larger than her hand. It felt like stone. It might have been a carving, though it did not exactly look carved for some reason. All deep blue curves, vaguely like roots. So, what is this?
Yeah, no clue on this one.
There's no like speculation or I think it has something to do with growing.
Oh, that makes sense. The blue roots.
Yeah. But I was wondering if you were maybe pulling up like some huge dissertation someone wrote on it because lot nerds are like that.
Let me do a quick look. Avienda does read this one when she does her whole reading in Knife of Dreams. It is for growing something, not plants. Something like holes, but not exactly. Activate it only requires singing the right song. This is
A talisman of growing.
a talisman of growing from
The
the Ogier.
ways.
This is where the ways came from. This Angreal would grow new waygates.
Because they gave the people Turangreal that they could make more with
And
after.
and you only have to sing to activate it, right?
Because male Aes Sedai made them,
right.
but they're dying out.
And
So
the
they gave
Ogier.
the Ogier a song activated thing.
Yep.
This is one of them. There's probably many, many of them. Well, probably not that many, but a handful.
Several, yeah, but several. But yeah, this came in obviously after the Ogier stopped growing more waygates. They probably fell into disuse and somehow came into possession of the kin. That's a cool one. I never noticed that before. I actually somehow thought sort of that with the junk. That's why I was like, wait, I missed that one entirely. Yeah, no, that's a good one.
So this one, it doesn't use Sidar directly to trigger it, but it engages with Sidar once it gets triggered.
Right. So I'm assuming. Well, that's interesting.
Oh,
yeah.
so then, but men made it, so it must
Right.
trigger both. It must resonate with both. So she's gonna find Angreal that can. She's gonna find Angreal that can Turangreal that can be activated with not channeling, but she and use both powers, but she won't find one that's only for men.
I gotta wonder though. Maybe the resonance to Sidar is the fact that resonance is like it's not responding directly to Sidar. It's the Sidene is resonating with Sidar somehow, and that's what she's actually detecting.
So then she would detect male and female ones alike because
Right.
it's just this is a power item.
Right.
I like that better.
I do
It
too.
makes sense to me that just you can tell if an item can channel the power. Well, hold the power. It doesn't channel the power. Sorry, Moraine.
And we do know that this Terran was made exclusively by men.
Yes.
As thank you for giving them shelter during the breaking and to help them with their madness. So yeah.
Yeah, for her to sense this, that implies that she can just channel or tell power wrought items. Period. Is there anything about a small box that felt like ivory covered in wavering red and green stripes?
Avienda reads this one as well. It is a music box holding hundreds, maybe thousands of tunes. It's an iPod.
It totally is.
It's like one of those old school that like white like.
Yeah, one of the big bricks that's actually heavy. Yeah.
A small box that felt like ivory covered in red. Yeah.
Yep. It's an iPod mini.
A black rod, no thicker. It's a stiff, flexible black rod, and it does seem to be associated with pain.
It comes.
Yeah. And Avienda reads that as well. It causes pain. The degree of pain can be controlled so that one blow can feel like 1 or 100. So essentially, it's a whip, right? That you can whip somebody.
I think it's like maybe like a baton almost.
Yeah.
But I can't help but say what everyone is thinking, which is that this is definitely a sex toy.
Oh yeah.
Like a Bond, like a sadomasochist.
Yeah, totally.
Sex toy, not like a dildo. But it seems like the kind of thing that would go really well in an Age of Legends dungeon.
Yeah.
Just saying.
It could. I imagine it was originally intended for like a law enforcement use, right? Like a non-lethal, probably. And then it got adapted for sex dungeon use.
Yeah, but that's probably why it got saved so long.
Totally.
After the Age of Legends, because
totally.
Everyone needs to, But yeah, it probably is intended as a weapon, actually. But everyone is thinking about how it can be applied sexually. So I just said it on behalf of everyone.
Hey, so bondage.
Loving what chat is saying, but I'm not going to read it because you all should come live in chat like normal Patreons that exist on our schedule. I'm not going to read what chat is saying because it's funny.
It's very funny.
But you guys, everyone who's listening to this who isn't a patron, consider the scintillating chat that happens when we mention sexy times on the pod.
Yeah, live recordings are wild. And those pauses where me and the radio are like stopping and being like, that's us reading the chat being like, okay, that's funny shit. We're not going to say it, but that's funny shit.
Yeah, they're excellent. So come be a patron and you can listen to this or watch and engage. And maybe, someday you too can be a co-host on the podcast like me.
All it takes is encyclopedic knowledge of the Wheel of Time.
Yeah, it's very simple.
No information on the vial of red liquid.
Mm, that's too bad. It's probably a potion of healing from D&D.
That's yeah, yeah. Or Kool-Aid, maybe.
Drink the Kool-Aid. And then we know that the figure of a stout bearded man with a jelly smile holding a book is the Robert Jordan self-insert library
Right. Yes.
which is excellent and
That's
everybody
I
loves.
love that one. That's one of the favorites, especially of the brown. Right. It's like
Yeah,
everyone who wouldn't want that on Grail? I mean, it's basically Wikipedia or like a library in your pocket, right?
but it's got fiction and nonfiction.
Right.
So it's more like a library, like
Right.
a public library, not a university library or whatever, but it's a public library. Is basically what it is. And yeah, or a Kindle, basically.
Right. Right. A
So
Kindle
in the
stuffed full of every book in a library.
yeah, that's getting one of these, finding a statue that fits this description would be a really cool auction item for the Brown next year for SpoilerCon. We did owl figurines we did owl bookends this year for just kind of like what you might find in Baron's library. But I'm thinking of trying to find this for next SpoilerCon might be a thing. Some Brown in the audience, remember that. I see a couple of you here.
Do you want something that's 2 feet tall? It's a big statue.
No.
That's a real big statue.
No, I was thinking more of the form, not the volume.
Yeah, because like
that's a
really big statue. Imagine like, okay, take this home on the plane, have fun.
It's kind of incredible that they got that out of Abu Dhar with carrying things by hand and pack animals. You'd think that would be one that they would leave.
I think someone went, this is probably object of power, right? Like,
yeah. It'd be a really cool garden statue.
But I'm thinking that they took pretty much everything, right? If looking back, we're like, oh, the first trip, it's like they loaded everybody up. I think they went back and took everything that they didn't. I really do. Because she's like, oh, the people who escaped took maybe a quarter of the stuff, and we got everything else. And I'm like, well, if you got everything else, that means either you were successful in loading everything on that one trip, which maybe, it's like when you put too many grocery bags in your hands and the plastic starts to cut into them, and they just did that all the way back from the Riyadh, so they didn't have to go back. So I can imagine just way overpacking everybody who came along, and they did that because and they sent people to get the actual bodies, right? They prioritized the Angreal and the stuff over the bodies of the compatriots, so which makes sense because you don't want some rando carrying Angreal.
Yeah, for sure. Be a really cool lawn ornament, though. Lan ornament. Lawn.
A lawn.
Lawn.
Well, we got confirmation about the pronunciations in that clip, by the way.
Yeah, which I have just needed to be mostly unengaged with that. But I did actually watch the clip the other day a couple of times and was like, neat. I'm going to go back to not engaging with everything that is happening around us right now.
The only thing that I will say about that clip is I thought the pacing was weird until Nabliss mentioned that it feels like it's been cut together from two, that there's stuff in between, and that he noticed there's a significant cut where some of the characters teleport. And so that most likely the reason it feels weirdly paced is because it's cut from two distinct scenes with stuff in between, just so they could show all the characters who happen to be on that panel in New York Comic-Con. So most likely, I was like, I liked it a lot, but the pacing felt very weird, and I'll just mention that it was most likely cut from a couple of different scenes, which is why it's very quiet. Because it's a lot of reaction shots, I think, without showing us what people are reacting to.
Sure. So yeah, that's all we have there. And then we have the sea folk are bad with horses. And then we have a small amber brooch in the shape of a turtle.
There's one line right before that I have to read.
Okay.
Nynaeve grumbled, not quite far enough under her breath. I can't abide women who poke their noses into other people's businesses. It's just like, oh my God, Nynaeve.
I love Nynaeve. She's so ridiculous.
Just, yes, you've been poking your nose into other people's business pretty consistently, Nynaeve. Congratulations.
Yeah.
So we get the amber brooch in the shape of a turtle, which becomes her go-to Angreal for a while, right?
She gives it to Talon for the Bowl of the Winds portion.
Right, but she gets it back.
And then she gets it back. And yeah, I guess she does kind of hang on to it herself for, I think she gives it to Avienda at some point once she's pregnant and can't channel.
That's right. And she's like, Avienda, have you thought about channeling twice as much power?
Right.
And
And
Avienda's
Avienda's
like,
like,
ooh, yeah. And,
yeah, first she's like, I can't take something from you. And then Elaine's like, but you'll get twice as much power. And then Avienda's like, grabby hands.
which is funny because that's like the weakest of all the Angreal. She's like, I'm not going to mention that the one I'm getting to Nynaeve would have given her like 100 times as much power.
Right. Yeah. But that's only because Elaine can't channel because of her pregnancy at
Right.
that point. That's
Right.
the only reason she gives up. So yeah, she has it from here until about halfway through her pregnancy. And she's all like, ooh, now I can study them and figure out how to make them, which is a fun thought.
But doesn't pan out.
Doesn't go pan out,
Right.
but it is a fun piece of her characterization that she really wants to reverse engineer Terangreal.
Which I love the fact that Angreal and Sangreal are the result of Terangreal. That Terangreal, we think of Angreal as being first, like you have something that amplifies the power, and then you have all these complicated machines. But it turns out Angreal are actually a product of the complicated machines. That like you need the complicated machine to manufacture the simple amplifier. And that we see Rand come with the seed, Terangreal, and gives it to her. So really, that's what she's missing, is she needs to create an Terangreal that will create the Angreal, and she doesn't have that. But I assume once she gets the man, the seed, that she's able to copy that, and all of a sudden then Angreal and Sangreal come back into our world.
Totally.
And I think I've talked about my headcanon that the difference between Angreal and Sangreal. So we know the creation of Angreal will deplete a channeler of their strength for a significant amount of time. And that's why they're very personalized and stuff like that. And I think an Angreal is created by a single channeler, whereas a Sangreal is created by a circle. And the bigger the circle, the more powerful the Sangreal. And so, like, the really powerful ones were created by a full circle, who depleted themselves for a very long time to create that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I dig that. That makes a lot of sense. And it also explains the massive scale jump, like from one person to a circle. Like,
yep.
That ties up a lot of unexplained loose ends very neatly. I like it.
It also explains the rarity of them, because how often can you get, like, 72 channelers to all agree on one thing, when this one thing then lose months of power for something you can't even use? Right? Like, no thank you.
Yeah, you've seen some pretty self-sacrificing kind of people, and 72 is a lot.
Yeah. And a powerful organization, or in like Demandred's case, a dictator.
That would work for sure.
Slavery, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Speeds things up.
Totally. You'll never get with the Shan Chan because of the nature of
right.
the forest circles, the collars.
Idom.
Idom, yeah.
Yeah.
Can you hear Timber in the background?
Yeah, I can. Nameless contributing to the podcast. I take it that never someone playing with him.
Yeah, she just got him.
So then Vandine comes over and tries to use scare tactics with Satala Anon's backstory.
Right. So Martine Janta was Satala Anon's name when she was Aes Sedai. And so this entire story is about her studying Terangreal and getting burned out and fleeing.
More than 25 years ago.
Yep. And that's one of the reasons why she's so reverent of Matt's Terangreal, is because she and Elaine are probably the only two people in the world who really, truly understand and appreciate how awesome that Terangreal is and how cool it is.
Yeah. But yeah, Vandine's just pulling this backstory out just as a casual scare tactic. And then it basically doesn't work in the slightest.
Yeah, no, because Elaine's like, yeah, I know what I'm talking about better than you do. So it's that meme when you walk into a hardware store and they try and help you, and he's like, yeah, I know more than you do. Right? Like, that's basically Elaine being like, yeah. And it might also be that she doesn't, and she's arrogant and young, but,
I think it has a lot to do with her being arrogant and young. It's her whole, like, I know what I'm doing.
Right.
It's like, it's just, it's the worst. It's like, no, you don't.
Right.
Actually, you're just the latest person to decide to fumble around with this stuff.
The real reason
she happens to do well, but that's it.
The real reason Elaine isn't in Avienda's prophecy dream and isn't queen anymore, Terangreal was messing around with one.
Yep. Abso-fucking-lutely.
Got taught. It's like, but she should live forever. Yeah, not with this rate of recklessness and messing around with
Yeah.
expensive toys.
Yeah.
It's like the race car driver who like is in his fifth speeding crash in his Porsche, and you're like, okay, there's only a matter of time before one of those kills you, right? Like,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Absolutely. And basically then we get to the unraveling, the unweaving. Unless you want to talk about Nynaeve being Nynaeve, which I think we know pretty well is a thing.
yeah, um, yeah. The next thing I have is the unraveling.
Yeah. Yeah. So
The gateway trembled as Avienda carefully picked apart the weave that had made it. It shivered and flexed, the edges wavering. The last flows came loose, and instead of winking out, the opening shimmered, the view through it of the courtyard fading away until it evaporated like mist in the sun.
it's a pretty cool description.
And that's an important event, both because it freaks out Moradin, and it leads to Elaine trying to do the same thing later, which leads to the explosion, which scares off the Shan Chan for a long time and creates quote unquote the weapon that they don't have, right? So that little incident actually sort of echoes down through quite a bit
It influences the Shan Chan strategic plan
for
for quite a while.
the rest of the series. Yeah, almost.
Yeah. They
Yeah,
eventually come to the conclusion that maybe the weapon doesn't exist,
or
but
that they.
that's a conclusion they're reaching like right at the 11th hour. So,
I think it's basically when they decide to attack the White Tower. They're like, well, we saw it used once, but chances are it was a one-time thing, and we're not going to see it again, or they don't all know it, or it was
yeah.
I think they'll even say it was an accidental explosion, and everyone's
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's yeah.
But it changes how they approach our heroes and the war with them for a while, which is kind of cool. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's because Avienda unpicks this one and
Mhm.
actually succeeds that Elena's like, I can do it too. I watched this on YouTube. I can wire a house.
Yeah, and then it turns out everyone's like, no, you can't.
One house fire later.
Right.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, thank God you didn't burn down the whole neighborhood.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and everyone is rightly freaking out because it is possible that everyone in the radius of this weave could have been stilled, which would have been every single one of these Aes Sedai kin and sea folk, right? That was a hell of a risk to take.
Right. Avienda's confidence in her skills is a lot.
Especially considering she like accidentally threw a fireball not that long ago when she was like she went like we don't see a lot of her training montage, but at some point over the last couple of chapters she's gone from, oh, I can weave fire to, oh yeah, I can casually pick apart these gateways, no problem.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, the wise ones are on the right track with teaching the skill. But yeah, Avienda basically pulls in Elaine with her level of confidence, and then Elaine copies that as Elaine. It's just bad.
You're not wrong.
Oh, yeah. It was necessary, to quote Avienda.
Mm-hmm. The wise ones say, and so okay, so I did have some confusion around here because she talks about anyone can learn how to unpick weaves, right? If you know how to unpick embroidery. And then later she says, that is a rare talent. That is a wild talent, girl. Neither Teslin Neither Teslin nor Jolene has it. Or do you Aiel warders all learn that as well? Few can do it, but I can. And so I was confused, but I was like, I realized the talent is not the unpicking of the gateway. The talent is the reading of residues.
Yes.
And so we actually see two significant talents from Avienda here. The unpicking of the gateway, which isn't apparently a talent, just something you can learn with practice. But also the fact that she can read residues and learn what those weaves do. And that's exceedingly rare. And I have to wonder if it's not related to her ability to hold a ter'angreal and determine what it does, right? Because you're reading the flows, the residue of whatever was used to create the ter'angreal. and it seems like the same talent just applied in two different ways.
I like that. I like that. And she hasn't really deliberately practiced either, so she doesn't really know what she's doing. So we're not getting the clearest of descriptions. But yeah. Yeah. I agree. I'm nodding.
Yeah. So that's my speculation about that, is that this is one talent that manifests in two different ways. The reading of residues.
Yeah.
And also the reading of Terangrial.
I really like that.
And I don't think that Nynaeve can do it. But I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, Rand can read residues.
Yeah.
We see it from him. I don't think Nynaeve can.
Mm-hmm. But it's one of those things that it's rare, but it's definitely not one of those like, oh, we only see a couple of people with it. Like it's like a percentage of all channelers can do it. Yeah.
Right. It's probably like being left-handed or something.
Right.
Maybe less common than that. Mm-hmm. But Aviendha can do it. So
right.
You know.
Right. So
then Avienda's like, I did it because I panicked. I have toe. No, she says, if I was wrong, I have toe, but I don't think I was wrong. And
she was not.
A bunch of bitching.
Yeah.
There's just a bunch of sniping and bitching and back and forth. Fundamentally, she was correct.
And realistically, that unweaving saves them from Moradin more than it saves them from anybody else.
Which is not who she thinks she's saving them from.
No, not at all.
It's not Taviran, it's prudence.
Mm-hmm.
She's being very, very prudent here, and it pays off big time for our main cast. And some of the servants go back through the gateway before Aviendha disposed of it, but the rest stood with 3 dozen or so pack horses. Those poor servants, they don't get home. They just go to work one day and then don't come home because they're running through a gateway and ending up in Andor.
Right, because don't some of them just stay in the farm? Or no, because they're like
the whole farm has to evacuate. Yeah. So they all end up in Andor as refugees, having to be like, can I please catch a gateway home? For fuck's sake, it's the end of the world. I would like to see my family. Because they thought they were just going out for a day, normal day on the job, working for Tylan. Then they end up in Andor, completely stateless, rootless, hierarchyless. It's rough for them.
You better hope you pick a good pair of underwear that day. You ever leave the house and you're like, oh, I just didn't pick the right clothing today. Imagine that's like the last time you go home for like a year.
That would suck. That would suck.
But I suppose that you're on the road and at some point you do get like financially compensated, right? Like,
yeah, I'm sure that Elaine takes care of them, but it's just like, that's got to be really rough. And then Elaine wonders, or she says, she hopes she did not turn into an idiot when she married, if she married. And it's like, well, the good news is getting married won't be when you start being an idiot.
I don't know. Actually, they are pretty much line up. Elaine gets a lot dumber after in the timeline. That's when she gets the babies and everything, and then
actually true.
Yeah, she does kind of become an idiot when she gets married. It's also when Sanderson takes over, so I think that might be more his writing style necessarily than her characterization. But she gets real dumb in that,
and it's also a lot to do with the pregnancy brain thing. So there's like that whole the reality and the trope of that being written by a man,
right?
But yeah, I mean, she picks apart a gateway in like 6 hours in the timeline and almost kills everybody. Right. So like, to a certain extent, I feel like she's always been
reckless. Yeah,
she's always been a dumbass. But yeah, when her and Rand get closer, she does get giggly. But again, they have one good night and then he leaves, and she's supposed to think clearly. Like, this isn't necessarily because you got married. This is because you just discovered what sex is like. Same with Nynaeve. Yeah. It's not the being married. It's the having sex.
Well, but don't those always happen at the same time and never beforehand?
Oh, right. I forgot. This is the idealized world imagined by a man raised in the 50s, writing in the 90s. I forgot. Sorry.
By the way, I found a loophole. I never have premarital sex because I never marry them. So, yeah.
I don't know how to follow that.
let's get back to the book. Where were we? Oh god.
Okay, we got this. We got this.
So there,
So
I think that's. There's a couple of more Lenny sayings, which is great. We get a bunch of Lenny sayings in this chapter. When a woman plays the fool, look for the man. I think we've maybe even heard that one before. And we definitely heard that in other forms. And then another was kittens tangle your yarn, men tangle your wits, and as simple as breathing for both. And again, just swap the genders on that if you want to, and it works just fine. Or
Yes.
just say people.
yeah, or
Yeah.
it's. I think in this case, it's the gender you're attracted to.
Yeah, totally.
I think that's what this one is for.
Yes, kittens tangle your yarn, the gender you're attracted to tangles your wits, and as simple as breathing for both. Yeah.
Or yeah, to make it more flow better, say like hot people.
Yeah. Hotties,
Yeah.
shorties. No,
No, not that.
no.
Yeah, and the whole reason we're getting these is because girl talk, we're gonna have an older man talk about how polyamorous women talk about their man. We're having that conversation now. Awkward. And then we move on to
Something he's actually good at writing.
yeah, then we're gonna yeah, that's all we need. We could just for once they gained a clear jump on the shadow.
I mean,
In some respects.
yeah, not clear in the way they think it is, but because like the golem still knows where they are, but they gain something on Moradin mostly because he doesn't care for a second and loses the information. Yeah.
And they gain a jump by running away because of the Sean Chan attacking, which is not planned.
Right.
It's just yeah. So we are done with them for the moment.
For the moment.
We will return to that plot line for an even quicker summary in the next episode.
Oh, very quick. But yes, we're very excited. This is going to be the fun part with Moradin. He has been watching them this whole time. So he sort of dismisses them as it was possible they were carrying away items he could use, but the chances were small.
He thinks Samael's a dumbass for even giving a shit.
Which, by the way, this really supports our Samael is just dumb hypothesis that we came up to at the end of book 7 when he got like, why did he do this thing? Well, he's just dumb, right?
Yeah.
And I think he's never been half as clever as he thought. Like, he just fell into the Dunning-Kruger pit of overconfidence and undercompetence.
Yeah. So then the fact that the gateway gets warped melts his brain, and he's like, "Oh my god, the primitives are doing a thing I didn't understand! Wow!"
And this is, again, something I think that if you were transported back into, the old world, you'd see some very interesting skills that don't apply today. And you'd be like, how are they even doing that? Like, I don't understand how they acquired the skills or how they figured it out. It doesn't make any sense. It's not applicable to my life. What the hell is going on here in this ancient Greek city or whatever?
Yeah.
There's stuff about that like we just don't understand because no one from that time is alive, and we can look at this the amount that we don't know is huge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Always assume that we don't know the half of it.
At least. And so he goes through a bunch of stuff that didn't exist, and also drops some clues that Moradin is a Shamael, which at this point we know backwards and forwards, but at the time this came out, it wasn't entirely clear. So a way to heal being severed, however imperfectly. So he must know about the healing of Suan and Leanne, right? Which makes sense because it's Dark Friends and Logain. But I'm wondering if he doesn't know that he doesn't understand the difference between being healed. Like we
wouldn't know about Logain.
Yeah,
actually,
right.
Because however imperfectly implies he only knows about this. So that's probably because of Shiriam.
Mm-hmm. And he might know that Logain is healed, but he probably doesn't know that he probably assumes that Logain has lost power as well, and doesn't know that he is.
Right.
Yeah,
he's not ground truthing that data point.
Exactly. Involuntary rings are Sean Chan Adam. The warders and the bond they shared with their Aes Sedai, that's something that we know is new and weird for all the Age of Legends folks. But here's the clue. He had known that for a long, long time. So that means he must be a Shamael because he's walked the earth over the 3,000 years.
Yeah.
Whereas any other Forsaken would only have learned about that recently.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Although there is some debate about Arangar and Osangar, that they maybe were close enough to the edge that they saw everything over the 3,000 years, so they may have been, even though they couldn't act, they had more visibility into what's been going on than some of the other Forsaken. That explains why they were able to pop out of the seal and immediately talk in common.
Oh, fair enough.
And that,
yeah, okay.
And that's why they were ground more finely, and they actually aged a little bit. It's because they experienced time in a way that the other Forsaken didn't. They experienced it as a dreamless sleep. We hear Lanfear talk about that.
Yeah.
Whereas the other ones who were ground close to the edge, they actually experienced the time, may have actually observed some of the world passing by.
Yeah. But still, it's the Shamael.
Yeah, well, right, yes. That's a long diversion to say, but anyway, it's a Shamael.
So then Madoc is like, "Hi, I'm a dark friend," just in case you hadn't picked up on that already.
Right, yeah, the one who was willing to be bribed. I think we found out that like Matt interacted with him at one point and bribed him to bring him his coat or something like that.
To bring Oliver into the sulking room.
Oh, that's right, to try and get around Teslin. Tylan.
You're having a hard time with those two. We will not besmirch Teslin Baradon.
They're both in Ebudar, so
yeah.
So we and with time we were like, oh yeah, he's the dark friend. He ends up getting squished.
Yeah, and he brings Matt in like on the first day. Like he's one of the Ebudar that we actually get a name that is, there.
And he's only here for a little bit longer, and then
yes. He lasts all of a page. Literally, he gets killed within a page of showing up in the scene. Because he's blathering on to Moradin, being like, "Oh yes, this is what the girls are doing. This is where they're going. This is what they have," and he's not really listening. Blah blah blah. And then he's like, "Wait a second, the weather? They're going to affect the weather," and then he gets angry and crushes Madoc
and realizes that if they, because he knows about the Bowl of the Winds, right? He knows there are Tarangrial that were used to control the weather, but it took a lot of them. So he's like, well, they're not a threat because it takes a lot of them. And he's like, well, wait, these women again can do things I'm not familiar with. They can control the weather, and if you combine weaves that do more than they should with the bowl that can amplify them, maybe that might affect everything and cause the Dark One. Because think about what the Great Lord does. What powers does he? He promises a lot of people a lot of things, and he affects the weather. Those are really the only two things he ever does. And resurrects some people, right? Yeah. And so there's some weird stuff that happens at Sheol if you bring someone there that he can affect, creating Slayer, that sort of thing. But like, for the most part, the weather is the only real tangible influence that he has on the world.
Yeah.
And so you can see why he'd be pissed if this got interrupted.
Mm-hmm. I like how Moradin is like a drug addict. As soon as he gets angry, he reaches for the true power. Just like, I'm pissed. I need a fucking hit. Like, there's just
what are you talking about?
It's a very strong connection between dependency and anger. And
shut the fuck up.
I mean, as soon as we're done with this recording, I'm gonna go get myself some more drugs. But
drugs are good. Okay.
I know what I'm talking about. That's all I'm saying.
So I really want. I've been listening to Tarvalin After Dark, and they always do a clever commercial. I need them to do a commercial about a Madoc juicer. Like, if you're a golem and you need fresh blood, get yourself a Madoc juicer, aka Moradin. Like,
oh my god, you should definitely pitch that to Brian.
I'm going to have to.
I bet he could make some very horrifying jokes out of that.
The Madoc Juicer 1000.
Yes. Coming out in the year 1000, the third age. Chat is reminding us that the Dark One also spoils crops.
Yeah. It's true. Well, yeah, that's sort of as he breaks out fully.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm thinking about right now in this video.
Yeah, for sure.
Does the Matic Juicer 1000 have both a pulp and a non-pulp setting?
Ew. So gross. Why would you say these things? But like, also, we're all thinking it.
So yeah, Morden gets a little upset
Yeah.
and squeezes, does that thing where he like we've seen him do that before where he squeezes the back of the chair. Like that's definitely like he gets
Yeah,
angry
and
and he
flames
crushes
come up.
something. Yeah, yeah. So he accidentally grabs a hold of a few things other than the chair and crushes Matic, which is just a little 90s tropey that like you tell a bad guy bad news, they get pissed off and just accidentally
Kill the
kill their
messenger.
minions. It's that like we see
Yeah, accidentally.
yeah,
Yeah.
accidentally. Like we see Lanfear does it deliberately when she cuts off the guy's head because he's in her way. When she gets news about the
Yeah.
cleansing.
Yeah.
But it's definitely something that happens a lot in the you know that's why you always see that stereotype of minions cringing to be like, yeah, boss, we lost the
Right.
gut
Yeah.
MacGuffin, and oh, you what, crush? Like that. I don't know. It's such a trope.
It's
So
tropey.
yeah.
But it's cool to show how different the true power is from the one power, that not only does it warp the metal that
Mm,
he's looking at, because he grabs the metal, but it warps because of the true power. And then he also grabs the guy behind him just with his mind. Like, it just
mm-hmm.
gives you a sense of how chaotically destructive the true power is, which is
Totally.
justifies
The true
the
power
leaning into the
likes.
trope.
hmm The true power likes to destroy things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it does. It does. And then Morden's like, huh. Anyway.
I also really like this description of he had strayed from his prison to touch the world enough to fix the seasons in place. Like, it's a really interesting way of describing. We always talk about like making things hot or like, like he's fixing things, which makes me wonder if what he's doing is in fact affecting the tilt of the planet as it goes around the sun.
That would be how you would fix the seasons in place.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't get canonical mention of if the days are getting longer or shorter as they should. Do we? Is
I
there
thought
any
they.
mention of the sun
Oh.
angle
Mm,
changing?
I thought it did change normally, but I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, I kind of thought it did,
Yeah.
but I'm not
We certainly don't get any
positive.
mention that it's off.
Yeah. I feel like Jordan would have his characters remarking on the sun not moving across the horizon each dawn.
Mm-hmm.
We
Yeah.
have enough people who are up late or early in the day that like we'd get that if he's a smart guy. He would know to mention that, I think. But I mean, yeah, like to fix the seasons in place, the way you would do that would be to fix the tilt of the planet. Otherwise, you just have to like magically add a bunch of energy to the atmosphere to keep it from cooling down.
Which makes
Or
me wonder if he fixed winter in the south hemisphere and summer in the northern hemisphere.
I mean, conservation of energy would imply that, but
Yeah.
we're already breaking conservation of energy by adding the
Oh,
energy to
well.
change the seasons.
We're also breaking conservation of energy by having the wheel of time that it goes for infinity because,
Yeah, that's true.
our universe has a very distinct beginning, middle, and probable end.
This is true.
Yeah.
Um, but how else could you do it? You could, okay, here's how the dark one could do it. The dark one could change the angle of the sunlight going through the atmosphere to redistribute the heat from the sun, even though the planet's still tilting as it would. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to really bend it before it hit the whole
Yeah.
sun. Yeah, I guess, yeah, you could do that. But again,
Because I mean, the way they fix it is like they
but
fix
that
it.
would
How do they
change the
fix
location of the sun in the sky just the same way, right? To change
it?
the radiation, you change the perceived angle of the sun in the sky, because all that solar radiation is what
Yeah,
we see and
yeah.
feel, right? Like so. Yeah, that's a bit of a conundrum. How do you change the seasons without just like other than physically adding and removing heat from the atmosphere? Which maybe, I mean, that he could do that as well, right? Like he's everywhere and nowhere all at once, right? Extending himself out to just like absorb heat from someplace. Maybe that's what he's able to do.
Yeah, maybe, yeah, just taking all the heat from the southern hemisphere and making it winter.
Yeah.
That Dark One Gulf Stream.
The Great Lord Stream.
Yeah. We're so off
We're
track.
so off track that, yeah.
We can do this. We can do this. So Moradin thinks to himself, he has to find those women before they use this Bowl of the Winds, and failing that, ellipses.
Yeah.
So basically the fact that they make the Bowl of the Winds work is a huge victory for the light, because Moradin is suddenly all about stopping them.
Right, and the fact that he misses the fact they're just a couple of miles away is deliciously funny.
Oh my god, it's so good. And the Golem knows.
The Golem knows.
The Golem fucking knows. Chef's kiss.
Definitely.
Dramatic irony. Yes. So then Golem section.
Yeah. He disliked. I just want to say he disliked people meddling with his carefully laid plans. Those who did so and lived to pay.
Very threatening.
Very threatening, and yet he never seems to affect the women. Like, it just seems like he forgets about, like, I think because shortly after this you get the cleansing, and that's like such a bigger deal than the Bowl of the Winds. He's just like, yeah, whatever. Like,
yeah,
I'm on to the next thing.
Yeah, no, the taint being removed from Saidin is definitely a bigger blow to the dark.
Because I mean, yeah, well, I mean a little bit. They're both sort of the seasons really would have been like world ending though. Like everybody would have died. It is.
Yeah, no, you're right. They're two different ways that the dark really, really loses.
It's like, yes, Rand could have won at the Sheol Ghoul, but if the Trollocs had overrun all of society and had been unable to stop, like, then I think you have ended up with like one of the portal worlds, right? That where the Trollocs inhabit everything, and like, no, the Dark One didn't win and get to remake society, but everybody's dead. The Trollocs rule the world, so oops. Like, it's still not a happy ending. Been watching a lot of Marvel What If, and so like that's like, there's basically a zombie portal world, and
nice.
That's the one thing we didn't get with Wheel of Time, is where's the zombie portal world? Come on, we need.
Yeah. Or one trope he just didn't go for.
Nope.
I Hinders Tap, and that was Sanderson. So.
Yeah, and they're not really zombies because they're more.
Yeah, no. Yeah, that's true. They become kind of like zombies after dark. The mindless violence and the easy to kill blood splatter thing is very much like it always feels to me like watching my brother play a first person shooter in a zombie setting.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good point, that they do sort of become fast zombie like creatures who are just after.
And they're stupid, right? Yeah. That's part of what makes them so freaky, is because they just fight like animals and they're uncoordinated. Right.
And they lose their higher brain function basically entirely.
Yeah. So in that respect, they're like zombies.
Right. That makes.
And then they come back from the dead. So.
Yeah. They're magical, very magical zombies.
Yeah, they get a zombie army for the last battle. It's fine. Yeah, Golem.
So Golem. I just want to read this whole section.
It's so good.
Right. The Golems.
Gotta get it all sorted. This will probably be the end of the episode, so we should just say, this section's cool. Hey, okay, thanks, bye.
Yep. The Golem stepped into the room cautiously, nostrils already twitching with the scent of still hot blood. The livid burn on its cheek seemed like a live coal. The Golem appeared to be merely a slender man, a little taller than average in this time, yet it had never encountered anything that could harm it. Until that man with the medallion. What might have been a smile or a snarl bared its teeth. Curious, it peered around the room. But there was nothing beyond the crushed corpse on the floor tiles, and a feel of something. Not the one power, but something that made it itch, if not quite in the same way. Curiosity had brought it here. Parts of the grill over the window were crushed, pulling the whole thing loose at the sides. The Golem seemed to remember something that made it itch in that manner, yet so much of what it recalled was foggy and dim. The world had changed, as it seemed, in the blink of an eye. There had been a world of war and killing on a huge scale, with weapons that reached across miles, across thousands of miles. And then there was this. But the Golem had not changed. It was still the most dangerous weapon of all. Its nostrils flared again, though it was not by scent that it tracked those who could channel. The one power had been used below and miles to the north. To follow or not? The man who had wounded it was not with them. It had made sure of that before leaving the high vantage place. The one who commanded it wanted the man who had wounded it dead, perhaps as much as he did the women. But the women were an easier target. The women had been named too, and for the time being it was constrained. For its entire existence it had been compelled to obey one or another human, but its mind held the concept of not being constrained. It must follow the women. It wanted to follow. The moment of death, when it felt the ability to channel vanish, along with life, produced ecstasy, rapture. But it was hungry too. And there was but it was hungry. But it was hungry too, and there was time. Where they could run, it could follow. Settling fluidly beside the mangled body, it began to feed. Fresh blood, hot blood was a necessity, but human blood always held the sweetest flavor. Sweetest savor.
Nice.
Yeah, that was fun.
Sinister. That was good. That was good.
It's always fun to read these like evil. I can get Fane vibes from the Golem.
Yeah, for sure.
A couple of comments on that, right? Obviously, so we get a little glimpse into the Age of Legends, war machines killing on a huge scale with weapons that reach across miles, thousands of miles, right? You've got, basically missiles that can reach anywhere.
Yeah. ICBMs.
Yeah. It's interesting he can sense the true power. Makes me wonder if he's immune to the true power. I didn't think he was, but now I'm thinking he is. In the same way that he would be with the one power. That if he can sense it, it's not exactly the same, but he can still sense it.
If he can sense it, he can be hurt by it. That seems to be the pattern that he's operating with.
Or he can avoid being hurt. He can absorb it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. It would be all the same to him.
Right. And the man who had wounded it is Matt, of course. And that's why he didn't attack these women. He was staying away in case Matt was with them. So he's inevitably protecting them even when he's not there, which I thought was actually very interesting and clever. Like, oh yeah, they're under Matt's protection, right?
Who's the one who commands it?
Samael.
Right. I probably asked that before, but
it doesn't know that Samael's dead at this point.
Right.
Because actually, technically, Samael might not even be dead because that happens on the day the Shanchan invade.
Does it?
Right? Because we see both of those happening at the end of the last book, right? And it seems like Rand goes off and fights Samael at the same time that Matt is encountering the Shanchan. So if we sync up those events, it might actually be that Samael at this point in the story hasn't died yet.
Okay.
Because again, we're going back in time a little bit. So, so yeah, Samael is the one who wants these girls dead. He's the one who sent the golem. He's the one who has been commanding him this time, and which goes back into my theory that the golem killed Herod Fell because Samael thought he was Asmodean.
Which is a very Samael thing to do.
Very Samael
the more
thing
we think about that, the more it totally lines up. Yeah.
And then it's only once Samael's dead that Moradin takes over control of the golem. As he seems to take control over all the dark assets leading up to the last battle.
For sure.
So it drinks the blood of Matic and, sops it all up because it's just fresh in one of the more horrifying parts of the series.
Yeah, and that's who's now got a vendetta against Matt and may go after all of our channeling Supergirls.
Yeah. God, the Golem is around for a while. He causes some real damage. Before Matt finally
almost
kills
tips
him.
the entire hand.
Yeah.
One agent almost completely changes everything.
Hell of a find in the stasis box.
Ooh.
And that was the blink that he was talking about, is the world changed in a blink. He was in a stasis box that whole time, which tells us a little bit about the experience of being in a stasis box. It literally is like no time passes for you.
Yeah.
You walk in, it's activated, that's the last until you are pulled out. That's it.
Yeah. Oh, Abigail is making me think, what if that's what the little glass vial is? What if that's how you store a golem? drop of blood in a vial that's like magic or something.
And it's like you pour it out and all the liquid comes out and
Yeah,
it's
and
like,
it becomes, yeah,
yeah,
like a genie, basically. Maybe this
a
is a
golem
genie
in a
thing.
bottle.
Yeah. Who knows? Could be. We have no evidence at all anywhere. Can do what we
Yeah.
want.
I think he stretches out. I think their mass doesn't change.
Yeah, fair enough.
I
I
think,
wonder how Samaya was able to like command it, like right out of the gate, you know?
honestly, straight compulsion. Well,
Can
no,
you,
because you
you
can't compel.
it's gotta be some other like I am one of the dark ones chosen, so you will obey me because you're
Mm-hmm.
a dark creature kind of thing.
There has to be something built into them that forces them to obey somebody, or else they wouldn't be useful as a tool. So when they were created, um, and they seem to be able to sense Forsaken. Is that correct? Most Shadow Spawn can't, right? Because Fade certainly and can, and for like Trollocs and Fades will only obey other chosen, other Forsaken, and that's like when someone impersonates Samael. I think Grendel does it. I'm not entirely sure who does it, but someone impersonates him and sends dark. This has been a long recording, and sends Shadow Spawn off to do the bidding. They go, "Oh, it must have been one of us because only Forsaken can order around Shadow Spawn." And
Mm-hmm.
so there must be some way for the Shadow Spawn to verify Forsaken. And so I'm thinking that same thing is built into the Golem and
Yeah,
forces them to obey Forsaken.
that makes sense. Yeah. So that was fun. It was a long recording, but hey, it was two
It was two
chapters.
chapters, two for the price of one, and two long chapters too. Neither of those was a short chapter. We actually busted through a decent percentage of the book today.
We kind of did.
Yeah, we kind of did. So yeah, that was wonderful as always. Thank you so much for joining us live. Really appreciate it. Ooh, we got a good crowd over the course of that recording.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah,
everyone. Thanks for joining us.
thanks for joining us. Yeah, and I thought we got some funny little stuff there at the end. That was good.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I definitely need to pitch the uh, Dark Friend Juicer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all right, I'm gonna turn off recording.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.